Hey everyone, Sean Taggy here, and I am with the most unconventional conventional lender that I know of, Mr. Aaron Chapman. Aaron, how you doing today?
Doing good, Sean. How about you, man?
Oh, doing great, man. Looks like you're looking cozy in your cabin there, or wherever you are.
I wish I could say I'm looking cozy in the cabin. Right now, I'm sitting in front of my green screen. This is my cabin, right? So it is my place out in Missouri. If you go to my website, you'll see the office I'm sitting on the porch of, and this is the cabin right next to it, which is my living quarters. Used to be a little chapel in the 1800s, man. The place is amazing. So the travel has really, really tapered off, and I'm looking forward to getting back out there soon.
That's right, man. I love it. So yeah, I just want to do an introductory video with you, so our clients can get to know you before they have a 15-minute call, and they're checking out lenders, so they can kind of just get to know you a little bit more. So tell us about your story, how you got started in lending and a little background about yourself.
That is definitely an interesting story as far as the how I got started in lending. So I come from a background of cattle ranching, and then left high school to go work in the oil fields of Wyoming, then running heavy equipment, driving truck, and I worked in the mines in northern New Mexico. I was there with my pop, and that was a really, really great job. But they started shutting down that project. I needed to find something else to do. So when I came back to the valley, I had my wife and infant son living in the Phoenix Valley. I go back and forth every 13 shifts, and couldn't find a job, dude. I had a really, really awesome resume. I thought I couldn't get a job to save my life. And I remember getting broken down to the point where I went to a landscape company to apply for a $10 an hour truck driving job just to haul landscape rock. They shot me down. They said I was overqualified, which is what everybody said.
Right.
So I'm driving away I'm literally walking out to my truck, a broken man. I mean, I was shedding tears in the parking lot. I start to drive away. I had a coupon for diapers for my son because we couldn't even afford diapers at that point. We were that busted. And as I'm driving down the road, my gas light comes on in my truck. It's like, well, here's another thing, right? So I pull up to the gas station out in front of the grocery store, swipe my debit card because I didn't even have a credit card, and I got a decline because I was overdrawn on my account. So I started digging through my truck. I found a few coins, and I started walking that parking lot for 2 hours. And I found enough change to get 2 gallons of gas because the gas back then was like 89 cents a gallon. This is 1997. And I went to the grocery store, got the diapers that corresponded with the coupon, paid for them, if you call it paying for them. As I'm walking out, I go face to face with a guy who used to do all the scheduling work at a company I used to dig swimming pools for. He asked me how things were. I explained. He invited me and my wife out to dinner at Red Lobster. He had a gift certificate from a client, and that's when he slid me a business card for a mortgage broker and the branch manager and introduced me to this.
Wow.
So I cut a foot off of my hair. I shaved. I put on the polos and crap, which my mom went and bought me the clothes because I couldn't even afford to get that because I ain't having any of that crap. I went into this place. I interviewed. They started me as a telemarketer that weekend. And when I generated a bunch of leads, I asked them if I could work 10 of them. So then they assigned me to another loan originator to take half of my commission on the first 10 deals. And that's how it started, December of 1997. It was a miserable, nasty, ugly climb to learn this industry. Nobody, I mean, they took care of me. They helped me out, but you're on your own, right? And still what stands out is that branch manager, I was only 23 years old. He seemed older, but turns out he was only 26. And this guy told me one day as we're walking through the hallway, because it was a year in, I was working my guts out. He goes, dude, because one of these days you'll be in the top 1% of this industry. Now, when somebody looks at that guy and having the time he was involved in the industry, 26 years old, he maybe had 4 years in the industry, right? And for him to be a branch manager and to pull me aside and say that, it meant a lot to me. Now, what 1% of the industry meant, I had no idea. Yeah. But right now, I rank in the top 10% of the 1% of the industry as far as transactions closed. And I look back on that and say, you think about that guy, he didn't have a whole lot of history in the industry. He didn't have enough of a background to be able to make that claim. He's only 26 years old. He's no longer in the industry, but yet it meant something to me. So here I am, the top 10% of 1% of the industry. And I focus only on real estate investors. And that's who I enjoy working with. And the real estate investor and people like yourself has helped get me where I'm at.
Man, that's awesome. I love hearing stories like that, man. Pretty similar to how my dad kind of went about, but man, that's so cool, Aaron. And that's why I think a lot of people can relate to that story, and that's why you're doing so great, because you know what it's like on the other end, and you're staying well away from that side of not having any job or employment. You're like, I'm going to stay safe, and I know you really take care of everyone around you as well. That is
I
awesome.
think people can't really reach any real level of success until they've taken such a heavy header into the concrete that you have to scrape yourself up from the ground and decide you never want to be there again. Now I've been there again a couple of times, but not my choice. Well, it really was my choices that led there, but I didn't realize where I was going. But now you learn. You know, I'm 45 years old and I've learned that that big foot that's running around trying to kick you in the ass every day is actually helping you and keeping you away from the things you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah. Uh, a guy that was investing with us one time, he asked, he's a real smart guy, and he asked, you know, what mistakes have you made, or what have been your toughest times? He doesn't care about our back record or our track record or how we're doing. Just, he asked, what's our toughest time we've been through? What mistakes have we made? Because everyone will go through a tough time and make a mistake. And if you haven't yet, you're cocky and you're not aware and you're not ready for what's going to come. So I thought that's an interesting question, which sounds like you've had that rough time.
Dude, and I've been cocky. I've got that cocky era before, back in 2007, I think is what it was. And then 2008 came around, man, and it was like what Tyson said. If you are not humble, humbleness will be thrust upon you. If there's anybody in the world who understands that, it's Mike Tyson.
That's right, man. So let's go over some basic questions. You know, we hear, and you probably hear a lot. So, you know, what's a conventional loan? What are your general terms? What is this whole terminology here?
So if we want to get into the depth of conventional lending, I'm going to encourage a lot of people who are paying attention here to watch the movie The Big Short. Get the kids out of the room, because it's definitely not one you want them to repeat the language in it, because you start having your children calling each other some of those names, it's going to be an interesting household. So, but that goes back to where the origination of the mortgage-backed security comes from, and that's what really fuels the conventional lending. Anything that's backed by Fannie and Freddie is going to be your conventional lending, or more your conforming conventional lending. And that's where I focus my energy at. There's a lot of other types of loans out there that are good, but they don't do what this will do. Now you can get 3-year arms, 5-year arms, 7-year arms, 10-year arms, 15-year, 20-year, 30-year. I focus on 30-year. 30-year fixed loans are the greatest asset in a real estate investor's whole portfolio. I know they're thinking, you know, this is, you know, I think it was Einstein that said that compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world, right?
Right.
Well, I'm locking myself into compound interest for 30 years. There's no way in hell this is a good thing. I want to get it paid off early. You do the 7-year arm and take all my cash flow and pay all this off. No, that right there is the one thing a person should not be doing. And we'll get into why. Now, when you're talking about a conventional lender, you can go to the banks, your Wells Fargo, your Chase, your Bank of America. That's what people think of mostly. But there's a lot of mortgage bankers who actually do the majority of the lending out there, such as myself with Security National Mortgage Company, where we focus only on lending. That's it. We don't focus on you know, checking accounts or consumer loans or anything like that. It's just real estate lending. I focus narrowly on investment. So Fannie and Freddie have created guidelines associated with this, because what they're doing is they're taking that money on Wall Street, those mortgage-backed securities, and they're funneling them through trusted lenders to put that money to work. And then they're guaranteeing that loan and guaranteeing the people who put the money up that they're going to get paid a reasonable percentage based upon their investment. Now, they set these guidelines that say you can borrow the money under these specific circumstances. As long as you fit this requirement, you can use this money. Now, they will allow somebody to have up to 10 finance properties. Now, we're talking 10 finance properties, that's anything in your name. It doesn't matter who you got the loan from. If you got the money from your grandfather and he put a lien on a property that has you signed on, and there's a lien on a property out there, that still counts as a finance property. So you got to think about these things if you're building a portfolio. If you want to be able to use all 10 of those and get the money from Fannie and Freddie for 30 years at really, really low rates and reasonable terms, then you want to take that deal with grandpa and say, hey, how about I put this in the name of, you know, single member LLC or something to that effect, and he lends the money to the LLC, not to you personally. If it appears on your credit report where you signed as you as the borrower, that counts, regardless of who gave you the money. So 10 finance properties. You know, a lot of people ask, when are they going to open it up to more? Well, we thought that was going to happen at one point, but now you got all this other mess that's going on right now with the whole world. I mean, not only do we have COVID going on, we've got the markets are completely in a big mess. Now, I mean, I went camping this weekend for 3 days. I came home to fires on both sides of the valley. I've got protests going on. We've got riots going on. We've got a curfew here in the state of Arizona.
Right.
What the hell? So I don't see us getting more than 10 finance properties anytime soon.
Yeah.
You know, it's a gift that we've got that, right? So
Yes.
that's the basic ins and outs. I mean, there's a lot more complication to it, but that's the basic ins and outs of what a conventional loan is.
Right. So let's say someone's ready, they're ready to buy a turnkey property or get finance on their personal residence. What do they need to have lined up though before they even decide on a property? What do they need to have ready to give to you and qualify for this loan?
Well, let me share a screen with you here.
Sure.
To really get started, what I tell everybody for one is you got to have a relationship with people, right? One, you guys and us, I tell everybody, get your mind right before anything else happens. You need to decide what you're doing. So decide that you are now not just spending money and going into debt. This isn't some sort of just transaction like a consumer, right? It's not a consumer transaction. This is a business. You are now the CEO of a real estate investment business. Now that you're thinking of it, when you think about it, you're going to start the business, you got to think like a CEO. So when you start that, now you got to decide, okay, what do I want to do here? Well, I want to make sure that I have the amount of capital needed to get the business started. So this is why I encourage everybody to go right here to the website. AaronBChapman.com is what it is. That takes you right to my website. You can see across the top here is it says loan process. You click there, and I've got a bunch of videos in here that go through all the process. This is me on site at the office in Missouri. I go through how that process starts, what the mindset is, because that's the most important part of it, in my opinion. The second most important part is your team, getting the right people in place to work with you. And I go through all what it has to do with locking your rate, assets and funds to close, all those things. After you've looked at that, and if you don't absolutely have to, right? But if you want to look at that, get an understanding of that, then you just go right here and click on the Apply Now button, which that Apply Now button is all over that website, because that's what's going to get you started. It's going to take you to this particular page, which is a secure page. First page is unsecure, just for people to look at. It's more for prettiness, right? Everybody needs to have a website of a redneck sitting on a porch. Just awesome.
Right.
Then you go to this secure server. Now, when you first come in, you're not going to have a username and password. You're going to have to create one. So you're going to have to create an account. Once you create an account, then you can fill out the information. You're going to go from there to your to fill out your application. Once your application is done, you submit that in. Now my team will download it and they'll review it. And then from there, they'll take you to the next step, which is where you upload information. You can literally go right back to the website, click on the client login in the upper right-hand corner that I just did, and then you'll put in your username and password, take you right back to your file that you created. And then at that point, you'll be able to upload your income and asset data directly to your file, which would be your tax returns, your pay stubs, W-2s, bank statements, 1099s, K-1s, all that crap, right?
Yeah.
So once that's done, you have to excuse the Google Voice thing in the background, making all kinds of noise.
Oh yeah, I thought that was me for a sec. No worries, no worries.
No, that's me. But so then you've got once that's submitted, now we put a person from there. Once you give us that data, they're typically in my industry, what they'd like to do is they like to take the loan originator or his assistant, pulls credit, they do a quick look at things, and they just issue a pre-qual letter. I don't do that. What I started finding is that if you don't take the extra time up front and ensure that person's really qualified, I'm risking their time,
right,
your time, market time for your property,
their hopes,
and I'm risking
yeah.
it dominoes out of control, right? So what I do is I hand it off. It goes, Carla Rausch is the one who first looks at it. If she looks at it, she takes a deep dive into it, believes that we can issue a pre-qual letter, she'll get it out to me right away to sign. If from there it is a little more complicated, I got 2 underwriters on staff that go through those files like an initial underwrite.
Right.
And they will even reach out to the borrower and they'll verify that what they need to know so we can issue that letter. It costs me about the average pre-qual letter that goes out up front. I'll bet you about $220 in hours paid to my staff.
Right.
Correct. Nope. So we're investing as well.
Yep. But getting them rock solid and making sure they're ready to get a property. That's awesome. So yeah, what I hear, so now let's get into the deeper stuff. I hear a lot of mental barriers that people have, or once they get, kind of down the line, what's the type of mindset that you think would suggest for investors to have going into being a real estate investor and investing?
Well, number one, each property needs to be considered its own business. You know, and too often people get in there, they dig into the pro formas. The pro formas is a great tool for you to analyze. Too often people gather pro formas and they stack them up, they spread them around, they try and they pick a property and person to work with based upon the pro forma they're looking at. Now, there's a client of mine who's a professor of accounting at Kennesaw State University. He's also a great friend. And he likes to tell his students the pro forma is Greek for made up. Because everything is based upon a set of numbers that you guys stick with, right? You guys apply the same math.
Turnkey provider has vacancy at what percent? Some don't even have vacancy in, some have repairs or not. And it's just no. Some put it out at 10 years or 1. It's all whatever someone feels kind of their opinion of what they could put on there. Yeah.
Or what's going to squeeze the best numbers, right?
Right.
So I can't say that everybody's going to have the same methodology. They're all different, right? You guys go when you're going to apply the same math to all your properties, right? Pretty much the same math, or you're going to adjust the math based upon a specific area, right? A little bit. Mm-hmm. But you can't say that your math is going to be the same as the guys over in, other side of the country or further south, something like that. It's not going to be the same. So what I find is funny is I've seen a lot of newer investors say, well, this guy has this 17% cash on cash return. I'm like, let me take a look at it. I'm like, dude, most of the stuff isn't even there.
Right.
So a lot of times they can get really kind of jerked off with the numbers. They need to take the time to understand, one, get the relationship with the provider first. Get to know you. Get to know the people who support you on your staff. Ultimately, Sean, you and Mark end up becoming like the regional operations division. That's right. Running their business, boots on the ground in Memphis, Tennessee. Why would you not want to work with somebody who understands that market so well? Then once they get to know you, take those performers from you, spread them around, because it can be a very, very similar methodology in creating those pro formas. Then you sort through the properties based upon the pro formas, push the ones aside that are far off of your mark, dig deeper into the ones that are closer, and choose the ones that you want to choose that make the most sense from your inventory. Then I tell them, once you've got those, you pick them up, you stare at them, you rip them up and throw them away because they don't matter anymore. Because that would just help you choose the property. Now, when you start getting into the depth of the value of that property, gets again into the other ancillary parts of it. So this is where you go into the next members of your team. You've got myself and my team who really become your finance division. So when we get into the depth of the value of this, let's look at how property really, really returns value. It's not just cash on cash return. It's not just cap rate. That's the cherry on top of the sundae. Let's look at the depth of what is the sundae. So one, if you bought this property with 20% down, let's just do some math together. You good with that?
Sure.
I'm not gonna test all your math skills because mine suck too. So I say two because I'm also painting you as if you're suck, but maybe they're not. Maybe you're a rocket scientist in disguise. So let's say you buy a property for $100,000 and you put 20% down. How much are you financing?
You're financing 80 grand, putting down 20 grand.
There you go. 80 grand, 20 grand. Nothing tough, right? So we're going to do a 1% rent to value ratio. How much is that?
$1,000 a month rent.
$1,000 a month rent, right? And let's say you're going to get $200 a month in cash flow after all expenses. Does that seem reasonable?
That's about it.
Okay. So let's now say that you've got a client, you're a tenant. Let's say you did the right job. You got the right people working with you. You've got the right home. It's going to stay reasonably tenanted for the entire duration of your 30-year deal. We're just going to look at this for 30 years. And let's say you have a tenant paying rent all the time. Who's paying off your $80,000 loan?
Well, the tenant, of course. The tenant's paying down that mortgage. Yeah, the principal and the interest, mainly interest.
Right. So now we'll get some heavier math. You're going to take 80,000 and you divide it by 30 because that's how many years it took them to pay it off for you. And that tells us how much per year on the average they're paying.
So $2,660 a year about principal pay down.
$2,666.66 to be precise, right? So then you divide that into the 20,000 because that was your investment, right?
Right.
So if you divide that into your 20,000, you are now seeing your 20,000 growing by 13.33% of the original 20,000 every year because somebody else is paying down the note, right?
Sounds pretty sweet. And that's without cash. Yeah.
So now you've got that growth. 13.33 is not a compound because it's only of the original 20,000, right? Right. So got that growth. We set that aside. You put that on the shelf. So now we start getting into inflation. Do you know what today's inflation numbers are?
Man, aren't they 3 to 6%? But that's like how the government measures it. But yeah,
Interestingly enough, they're measuring like 1.8 in the last few months, and now with what happened with oil recently, dude, they were showing in the fact that people aren't driving as much and their expenses are lower, supposedly, they're showing inflation at like 0.8.
right.
Now, yeah, are you kidding me? Did the cost of food go down because of COVID?
No, not too much.
The cost of toilet paper?
Oh, that went up.
No, the toilet paper index is through the roof. If you invested in Charmin last year, holy crap, would you be kicking ass?
Yeah.
But so think about where that is. The actual inflation, if you go to shadowstats.com or the Chapman index, they actually show actual inflation with real life cost of living. They're saying, John Williams on Shadow Stats have been saying nationally it was about between 9 and 10% for a number of years, the last few years. He's saying right now with the government's adjustment, he's saying about 7.3. Well, I'm using 7%. So I'm just going to say 7%, be a little bit more conservative than even John Williams. Now, because of inflation, we get to raise rents, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've increased our rents 4 or 5% every year for the past
So
few
4 to
years.
5%, that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say for the sake of just beating it down a little bit, let's say it's 3%, right? The national average for apartments is 3.6. So let's just say 3. So if you raise your $1,000 a month payment to your tenant by 3%, what is 3% of 1,000?
$30.
$30, nothing sexy, right?
Right.
You're driving through California, that's 2 lattes, you and your passenger.
Well,
It doesn't go very far.
Right.
Right. So, but when you think about that, you went from $200 a month cash flow year 1 to $230 potentially year 2, right?
Yep.
Well, if you look at that $30, that your cash flow just increased by 15%. Every time you raise rent, you get a compound growth in your cash flow. Another compound, right? Up potentially 15% just at 3%. If we're going off of your guys' numbers, now you start seeing closer to 20% compound growth on your cash flow. That's huge. So we got 13.33 on your initial investment. You got a compound growth on your cash flow, and that ain't even the sexy part yet. We haven't even got to the awesome part. Now we're going to get into this chart. I brought up before Kennesaw State University. Well, they heard me talk about my thoughts on inflation, the fact that we get to raise rents, but they don't get to raise the payment on the loan to pace inflation, right? So let's look at these numbers we were just talking about. We're talking about a $100,000 purchase, 20% down with an $80,000 loan amount. We're going to say roughly 4.5% interest rate. Now, look at here. You're going to pay $80,000 in principal, right, over 30 years. The interest at 4.5% becomes $65,925.37 over 30 years. People are like, I don't want to pay that interest. I want to get it paid off faster, right? Well, that's $145,925.37 is a collective amount being paid over 30 years. But what's awesome about this, they don't get to collect more than $405.35 every single month for the next 30 years. You get to keep raising your rents. But the value of the dollar is declining by that 7%, correct?
Right.
I factor that in right here, 7% annual inflation. That means the value of the dollar is losing that much on an annual basis, or at least its buying power. So if you recalculate every single dollar as it leaves your hands to make a payment, and you compared it to the value of the dollar the day you borrow that $80,000 to buy your business, you're not paying the $80,000 in principal. You're not paying the $65,000. You're paying $60,926.91 in actual dollar value. Now, these are not my numbers. This is the entire accounting department at Kennesaw State University working together to create this tool for me. I'm the only person in the world that has this tool other than those guys.
Yeah. So it looks like the last especially over 30 years, that compounding, it's like your last payment on month 360 is $405 in 30 years from now, dollar, but it's really worth like $50, $49.94. And today's that dollar's day comparatively. So yeah.
And by that time you get to buy 1 latte with that $49.
Right. So it really just shows that you hold out, the longer you hold out on paying that off, the inflation is just beating that lender down, which, that's great.
Exactly. And so one of the things I really like to point out to investors is you got to understand the value that comes in here with being a real estate investor. One, you get to take advantage of, you're not getting hurt by compound interest like the rest of the world. You get to take advantage of compound interest by living in an inflationary environment. It's like you're putting both those two negatives together in the ring and watch one beat the hell out of the other one for you. And you can see that it's a massive, massive return for you. And that's not, and then we get into the tax benefits because we know rates are going to go up. Some people are going to look at this and be like, well, yeah, that's at a 4.5% rate. What happens when they go up? We know they're going to go up. Well, I have an example from your guys' database. I have a client that bought through you. There, I think it was in Memphis. It wasn't in Memphis. Maybe it was in northern Mississippi where this happened. So 2 new build properties, same street, same floor plan, same potential rent, same price. You remember this one? It was awesome as hell. So we closed on the first one December of 2017, right? It was 4.75% interest rate. Very, very happy with it. The second one, you guys had yet to break ground at that time. Nice. So Jerome Powell started the quantitative tightening in December 2017, remember? Mm-hmm. So quantitative easing is Fed dumping, which the Fed's doing a shit ton of it right now, dumping tons of money into the market. So even way more than they ever did. We're talking $100 billion in a week has happened recently. So no, yeah, 100 billion. Actually, I think it was 1.some trillion dollars in a week. Was one of the maximums they did in these last couple months. But so up to this point, they're putting in 10 to 20 billion per month, which I talk about that very nonchalantly, but it's crazy. But then they took the foot off the gas and started going to where by the end of the first quarter, I think it was down to like 100 million. So think about the difference, 10 to 20 billion, 100 million, right? We can't fathom those numbers because we've never lived in that space. But by the time you had finished property number 2, right, it was done, ready to close. It was May of 2018. He had just finished his taxes. He was getting ready to close on this property. Interest rates went up a full percentage point from 4.75 to 5.75. Now, of course, his question was, Aaron, because I'm not sure if I'm going to call the guys over at the reading company yet, but I may cancel number 2. I'm like, well, why are you going to cancel number 2? It's like, well, with the interest rate being that high, I'm losing $600 a year. I'm like, how are you losing $600? He goes, well, the difference in payment between property 1 and property 2 is $49.97 a month. You round it up, that's $600 a year. I'm like, well, do me a solid. Why don't you contact your CPA? You just finished taxes. Ask him what is the difference between the taxes you'll pay on the higher income property versus the taxes you'll pay on the lower income on property 2, because we pay taxes on income. Then ask him what's the difference in that you'll get in a tax deduction with the higher interest rate on property number 2 versus property 1, and then come back to me. 3 days later, so let's go ahead and close. I said, why are we closing? He says, well, after I ran all the numbers and after we went through a mock of my taxes, I was no longer paying $49.97 per month difference. It's about $3.55. Right. Let's go ahead and move forward. How amazing is that? So another key factor is that real estate investors properly set up, talk to your CPA, talk to your team, set up your business right. They get to take advantage of so many different things that it smooths it out that other people don't feel. If you're buying a home to live in, it's going to kick your ass when the rates go up. But real estate investments, you don't really, it's very, very minimal difference. I have properties right now. In fact, the one in my background here is 6.99%. I've got another one in Missouri at 6.125. I've got one in Alabama at 6.25. I don't care. I haven't refinanced those because my taxes completely smooth it out to where it's like probably $12 a month difference regardless. So why am I going to spend $5,000 on just a refi for rate and term for no reason?
Right. That's great. Aaron, man, thank you so much. Man, summarizing, I love the shadow stats showing that inflation actually eats away those payments over time to where they become less and less valuable of the payment to the lender. It's better for you, which also inflation means higher appreciation in real estate. Going over the principal pay down over the 13% on average a year for this $100,000 property example. You've helped us out a lot, added a lot of value. People can find more about you at, your website, Aaron Chapman. What is it again?
AaronChapman.com works, and AaronBChapman.com I send out a lot because for some reason AaronChapman.com doesn't like to work with Internet Explorer, but works great with Google Chrome. So either one you should be able to find me. And then the main thing I want everybody to think of is, really, who do you have on your team? There's a lot of people out that do the type of jobs that we do, but do we understand what they're trying to accomplish? Anybody can say, I got a house to sell. Anybody can quote an interest rate, but not everybody is an actual trusted advisor at your board table. Not everybody is interested in your business. I know how you guys think over there. You think like me. We are extremely interested in their success because if they succeed, we succeed. But if they fail, we start to fail, and I do not participate in failure.
That's right. Love it, Aaron. Thank you so much, Aaron, for showing on. Anyone who wants to reach out to Aaron, you can check him out on his website. And now you know a little bit more about him. Thank you so much, Aaron. Have a good one.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate you having me on, man. Thank you.